Hi guys, how are you doing today? Hope you are having a drama-free day. So today's first story is about OP's in-laws, who demand OP's mother gives her family heirloom to OP's stepdaughter. But the thing is that OP has a daughter herself. But OP's in-laws insist that kids should be treated equally. Well, I agree that kids should be treated equally, but I also understand OP's mother, who wants to pass her family heirloom to her blood granddaughter. Listen to the end of the story to find out my opinion on the situation. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I came into my stepdaughter's life when she was 2. A year later, her mom was given permission in court to move across the country with her to better their lives. We saw her for 4 weeks every summer, every other Christmas, and we'd fly out for spring break to see her. And we got a couple of other school breaks with her. She's now 14. My husband and I have a 7-year-old daughter together. My mom recently shared with my husband and myself that she intended to pass down a family heirloom to her, an heirloom that gets passed to the oldest granddaughter in the family. She wanted to know if my husband was okay with that because of my stepdaughter. He understood because while I love her and would do anything for her and don't show favoritism, he is also aware my family does not get to be a huge part of her life because of the long-distance thing. She said she would keep it for another few years and decide when to give it to her. Then my in-laws were visiting, and my husband let slip to them about the heirloom. They were furious with me that I would allow it, and said my mom was a raging bee to treat my stepdaughter so differently. They accused me of not loving her, and said I should stick up for her as the oldest grandchild and as an equal part of my family too. I can understand where they are coming from, but I can also understand my mom. I feel bad because I've always done my best to treat them equally. I wonder if I'm wrong to allow this. Am I the a-hole? Well, in my opinion, OP's 14-year-old stepdaughter already has her own maternal grandmother to have been able to pass down things to her. And it seems that OP's mother was very limited, or even zero contact with her. Why would she give something so precious, something that has been in the family for generations, to someone she barely knows? The heirloom belongs to OP's mother, and it is up to her to decide whom she wants to pass it down. I also doubt OP's daughter is entitled to receive family heirlooms from OP's stepdaughter's mother's family. And now let's see if the community agrees with me. Torty's Rock says, not the a-hole. It goes from grandmother to granddaughter, and it appears that your mother is not a grandmother figure in your stepdaughter's life. Walk to the Brook says, not the a-hole. It's your mother's heirloom to dispose of as she pleases. Curious what the item is. Emotional Salad 8018 says, an antique necklace that dates back a few generations. Has some culture ties too. My mom got it from her grandma, who got it from her own grandma. B4 Pangay says, not the a-hole. Your dear husband blew this. Why would he even bring it up? There was no need for them to even be aware of it. Now it's a thing, and a lot more likely your stepdaughter will hear of it. He needs to step in and explain firmly that he is not on board with this, and that they need to keep their mouths shut about it. Background. So I, 24 male, just had my mother pass away in July from a bicycle accident, and found out I was the sole heir to her estate. She was a stay-at-home mom for my whole life to my brother, now a 22-year-old male, and I, and 3 years ago she found my dad cheating on her and started the process for getting a divorce. This was a lengthy process, and ended up with me being on my mom's side and my brother on my dad's. My dad has quite a large cattle ranch in Montana that he and my mom bought from his father while they were married, and this ranch is the main point of contention for the divorce. My mom had mostly finalized the divorce, and to avoid forcing my dad to have to sell his ranch, she only went after 25% instead of the 50% deemed fair and equitable per state law. This was against the advice of the court, but she went with it anyways. She won the initial court case, and then my dad appealed it to the Montana Supreme Court, and she won there too. My dad never paid the amount ordered to her, so right before her passing, she was working on filing for contempt to get the amount she was owed. It should be noted that she went after the 25% to ensure the ranch wouldn't have to be sold, so my little brother could inherit it from my father. Since my dad testified that he wasn't going to give me anything to inherit, partly due to the fact that I don't want the ranch, nor have any desire to be a rancher, but also because I took my mother's side. She left everything to me. Fast forward to the present, and now I am the one that is having to take the burden of taking my dad back to court for the amount he hasn't paid. This is after I had to handle all the funeral preparations, as well as my mother's medical bills. This has been a super emotional time for me, and I'm realizing that my dad is my only parent left, and I don't want to lose my chance at a relationship with him. He claims that even paying the 25% will cause him to have to sell the ranch, which, while I believe is false, he owns it free and clear of debt, and I don't think it would be terribly difficult for him to come up with the money without selling the ranch. I'm worried that following through with this will make me the a-hole to him and ruin my chances of a relationship with him, and consequently, my little brother as well. So, am I the a-hole? In my eyes, OP is not an a-hole in this situation. However, OP will be the a-hole in the eyes of her father and most likely her brother. This sounds like what concerns OP the most. Unfortunately, OP will need to decide whether she wants the money more or a potential relationship with her dad and brother going forward. Maybe OP could negotiate some other form of fulfillment of her mother's wishes. Let's see what the community's opinion on the matter is. Ian Caradoc says, "You're in quite the pickle if you're the executor, personal representative for the estate. If you are, you're acting as a fiduciary, and it does not matter what your personal interests are. You are to act in the best interests of the estate and its inheritors, which may also be yourself, but that's a separate hat." Bambi A and B says, "Not the a-hole. The law doesn't care about feelings. Your mother went after what she thought was fair when she was alive, and as the executor of her will, you have an obligation to carry out her last wishes. Not to mention, your father is also now appealing to your feelings to not pursue it, even though he was the one who cheated and is now trying to screw you out of your inheritance because he sounds like a greedy SOB. That good stuff. I, 24 male, have 2 sisters. I'll call them Lisa, 28, Kinsey, 19. My parents divorced when I was little, leaving the custody battle up to the courts. Our parents agreed to send Lisa and I to live with our godparents, Mark. He met my father in law school, and they were very close, and Vivian. After a while, the court decided that my parents could split custody between us, with us altering who we stay with every other week. After about a year or so, Mark and Vivian moved to the UK, buying quite a large house and estate. A few years later, my mom remarried and had Kinsey. We weren't that close because of the age gap and the time away from her, but the relationship stayed mainly positive. Fast forward to when I was a sophomore in high school. I stayed with Mark and Vivian during the summer again because I had always found the UK interesting. Mark showed me how to drive. He was a big car guy, fish, and do a bunch of other stuff. He was like a second father to me, unlike my stepdad. Later on, I attended uni in Europe, and Vivian and Mark made an effort to come out to see me, bring me out to dinner, and stuff like that. My real parents called occasionally, but never flew out or anything like that. I ended up spending the holidays at their house, and it basically became my second home. I graduated last year, but this was also the year I found out that Mark had cancer. Despite this, he still came to my graduation. I then got a job in the US and moved back. He died earlier this year, and I was sad not to be there for him, but Lisa and I flew out to go to the funeral. Afterwards, the family lawyer contacted us and informed each of us of our inheritance. Much to my surprise, we both received a large sum of money in the 7 figures, in the form of a trust. I also received Mark's car collection, worth about $500,000, which included the 911 he taught me to drive in. Vivian got the rest, and sold their house and to get a smaller apartment in London. When Kinsey found out what we received, she got jealous and demanded we share the money with her because we are family. I don't even have access to most of it until I turn 30. My mother also keeps calling me asking that Kinsey get some of it, to pay for her college and stuff. Mom got more than enough for Kinsey's college through the divorce settlement. I told them that it was my money, and Kinsey had nothing to do with Mark or Vivian, and that's why she didn't get anything. I was really mad that they asked for this without even coming to the funeral. Ever since then, I've stopped talking to them because they always find a way to bring it up during a conversation. Anyways, am I the a-hole here? Well, in my opinion, OP is definitely not in the wrong here. Looks like OP's mother got a huge enough settlement in the divorce from OP's father to pay for OP's half-siblings' college fees. And she expects OP to give this half-sibling money from a man who she has no connection to. Insane level of audacity on OP's mother and sister's part. Let's see what the community says. Kitchen Dismal 9258 says, "Not the a-hole. Kinsey didn't even know Mark and has no connection to him. She's not your father's biological child. You owe her nothing. And I bet you if the situation was reversed, Kinsey wouldn't give you a cent." Georgian says, "Not the a-hole. People can get shameless when there's money involved. You probably would have helped your sister when she needed it, but now forget it. Don't give in. She had no relation to your godfather, or else he would have added her in the will. Throwaway Guy 755 says, not the a-hole in any sense or way. Kinsey doesn't know them and has no relationship with them, so she isn't entitled asking anything that Mark has worked for. People always try to ask for money once they know someone got a nice sum. You have no obligation to give anything to anyone, and especially not Kinsey. I adore my wife. She's the best thing to ever happen to me, and I can't wait to start a family together. She's also an absolute knockout in the looks department, and she knows she is. Whenever the subject of exes or crushes or just talking about someone I had previously said I thought was pretty, she starts unloading on them about their looks. How she can't figure out why I'd ever think they were attractive, or that she doesn't understand my taste in women. This went on for a while, and I never said anything because I truly don't give a duck about any of those people, only her. So what's the point of sticking up for someone not relevant to my life? But eventually, it started to bother me. It started to feel like I was being insulted because I was ever interested in these girls. I eventually spoke up and explained that when she's relentlessly bashing these women, it actually makes me feel bad about myself. Like I've never been with a beautiful woman, and my entire dating history is disgusting. Sure, not every girl I've dated is a smoke show, but that wasn't really relevant to our relationships or why they didn't work out. She is objectively correct about some of the exes being average or below average, but several of them are objectively gorgeous. It always puts me between a rock and a hard place, because ultimately, it doesn't matter because they aren't in my life, and all I want is a happy life with her. But there is a part of me, my ego, that wants to resist because it feels so disparaging and belittling towards me. We talked it out, and she said she would stop. It never really stopped, but I just avoided the subject, or agreed with whatever she said when the subject came up. Until today, when the subject came up again. We were reminiscing about the first night we met. She had come to a bar with another guy who I thought she was dating. One of our first conversations was about mutual friends, and I asked if she knew a brown-haired girl that worked at her company that was cute. Fast forward to years of dating and marriage, and we can't remember the girl's name while reminiscing. We gave the old Facebook a snoop and found her. She goes right back into the bashing routine, how she can't believe I thought she was cute, and she will never understand my taste in women or my type. I finally had enough, and casually dropped, "Well, you're my type, so you're grouped in with the rest of them." She flipped out, left me at the cafe where we were at, and has basically given me the silent treatment for the last 24 hours. Well, in my opinion, it's really not cool to be dragging other women, no matter how they look. It doesn't mean she gets to rip on them. Perhaps OP's taste in women ran to qualities deeper than appearance before he met his current wife. Perhaps if OP's wife would stop criticizing OP's exes, she might notice that some of them even had qualities she lacks, such as having self-esteem so that they didn't have to put other women down to make themselves feel better about themselves. Let's see what the community has to say about this situation. Kindly Add 4670 says, "Not the a-hole. Like, honestly, this sounds a lot like some insecurity at work here. You asked her to stop. It is making you feel needlessly like crap. It is degrading these other women that you have nothing to do with at this point. And you observed, rightly, that yeah, actually, if you have a type, you ended up with her in the end. Her commentary on how vile or disgusting your taste is by its very nature will boomerang right back at her in that sense. It just sounds insecure and mean-spirited and unnecessary. Hope you get to talk it out at least." Mammoth Neat says, "Not the a-hole. She's insecure. Tearing down other women is such gross behavior, and she needs to get over herself. Being beautiful doesn't give you the right to trash on other people." Dino Nugget Supreme says, "So she's allowed to bash other women and say some pretty ducking nasty crap about people she doesn't even know, so she feels better about herself. But when you get sick of her never shutting the duck up about it, that's what I assume she's doing. She's the one who gets offended, not the a-hole. Also, OP, I'ma be honest, your wife does not sound like a nice person at all. Seems like she lets her looks go to her head, and now she thinks she's better than other women." My sister, Anna, suffered a TBI in a car accident. She doesn't get a lot of social cues, is slow to respond, and sometimes throws tantrums like a moody teen. I do love and care about her, but the easiest way to explain it is that she can sometimes act like a child. I'm getting married early next year. My wedding day is something I've dreamed about for years. I'll put it bluntly, I don't want Anna to attend the wedding. Mom would be hovering over her. I know this might sound selfish to some, but I just want Mom to be there for me for one day. She might be distracted during the ceremony or reception. I suggested we book a room for Anna at a nearby hotel, and if needed, Mom can go check in on her. And I say this because she can stay alone and has stayed alone in the past. Mom said I should be including Anna. I tried to explain to her that I just want my perfect day, but she didn't want to hear it. We're not having any kids at our wedding under 13, and I made the mistake of bringing that up in front of Mom in relation to Anna and her behavior, which didn't go over well. Me and Mom had a major argument, and I uninvited her, saying she should think of me for a second instead of Anna, and if she really feels so strongly, she doesn't have to come at all. It really hurt because I'd like my own mother to be there for me on my big day, but this is just all blowing up. Mom got really upset and called me a selfish brat. A couple of my friends are saying I'm in the wrong here, so I decided to post. Wow. Well, OP's mom is right. OP is a selfish brat. She has family and her behavior doesn't depend on her. OP should be happy her sister survived the accident and celebrate with her. Shame on OP. Let's see what the community thinks. Ziona says, "This is rough, but you're the a-hole. You're excluding your sister from an important day in your life because she can't act normally due to her TBI. I understand wanting my one day, but real talk, OP, it's one day. When you look back, you won't have your mom or your sister in your photos. When asked about it, what will you say? I invited my mom but not my sister because I didn't want her taking attention away from me since her TBI happened. And then when my mom confronted me about excluding my sister, I told her not to come too because, again, I know she wasn't going to pay any attention to me. Is one day out of a calendar year really worth the permanent fallout?" Mushroom Powerful 3440 says, "I always thought that weddings were a way to celebrate the union of two partners with family and friends, not a self-centered perfect event. I guess this is why I would never understand posts like that, or any whining childless wedding posts of people ready to die on some hill to exclude close family members, yes, disabled people, kids, etc., and damage relationships for the sake of a party. Your wedding, your rules, but be prepared to suffer the consequences of your choices. You're the a-hole."